Welcome to another episode of Clash Wrestling 360. And I am the star and most charismatic podcast host of the best Clash Wrestling podcast in the whole world, Lance Brock. And tonight I'm making history because I'm being joined by, for the first time ever on his iBone, the Caveman Elk.
That's right. iBone 6. I'm not just some jabroni walking around with an iBone 5 or an iBone 4. I think iBone 6.
Oh yeah, gotta get
all the new features.
Gotta get the new one.
That's right. It smells like Triceratops as opposed to Brontosaurus. Bigger bone surface. I mean, it's just top of the line.
So, how are you tonight, buddy?
Well, I'm not gonna lie, Lance Brock. I'm still a little disappointed over what happened at Clash Wrestling Seize the Day. But other than that, I think things are going good for Prehistoric Forest. We're looking to regroup and take that title back hopefully in March. And if not March, we'll just keep the March going until that title's where it belongs.
And in the main event, there was some controversy. I saw it from where I was standing. The referee was distracted by Belvedere, Evan Craig interfering. He sent them to the back, and Greed had you covered. But what the referee did not see was that your shoulder was actually up during the pinfall.
Right. Well, I mean, not only that, if I'm not mistaken, I got walloped by a title belt as well.
Yes, you did.
So there's that on top of it.
And I'm sure that didn't feel too good.
Right. Obviously, there's an officiating problem in Clash Wrestling, maybe the sport as a whole, but I'm Elk, and I like to go out there and I like to smash. I don't like to make excuses, so it is what it is.
And I gotta say, not trying to be rude or anything, but all of this whole situation is your fault. Because a couple months or so ago, I offered to be in your corner, to support you, to be your manager, and I could have been there. I could have pointed out to the referee, hey, Dragon Greed used the belt, or hey, his shoulder is up. And then the match could have continued. You could have defeated Dragon Greed, and tonight you would be the Clash Wrestling champion if you would have let me be your manager.
You know, that's one way to look at it, Lance Brock. You could say that, Lance Brock would do the altruistic thing and he'd help out the Caveman out. Another way to look at it is that you might have been celebrating right along with Dragon Greed and a bunch of Brontosaurus turds that he calls an entourage. You'd be out there slapping high fives with Bruce Dillon and Evan Craig and Belvedere yourself.
Well, I am good friends with Belvedere, and and he was on the podcast last week, but
of course he was.
But I would have done business first. I would have supported you in that match, and I'm sure you know that. I'm all about business.
I think you're all about Lance Brock.
So, I got an idea, though. How would you like it to have another shot at Dragon Greed? But this time, how about if there was something around the ring to keep the entourage out? Maybe a steel cage.
Oh, well, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? I mean, to get my hands on Dragon Greed inside of a steel cage.
And maybe...
You know I'm undefeated in steel cage, man.
Yes, you are. I was going to bring that up. You won the first ever Clash Wrestling steel cage match. Unfortunately, against Clash member Cameron Sky. But you still won it.
That's right, fair and square.
And I'm sure you would like to get a hold of Dragon Greed, take his face, and slam him right into that cage.
Oh, I'd love it more than anything in the world. To just grind his face up against that steel and hopefully rip him open and then see what he's actually made of.
And maybe Clash management is listening to this, and they will make that match in the future.
Well, maybe they will. Maybe they won't. Either way, I'm going to get my hands on Dragon Greed, and that title belt is coming with me, Alpha Caveman.
And now let's talk about another match where history was made.
That's true.
Loser leaves Clash, Gavin Quinn,
Yep.
and Juntai. And I know you're not a fan of the Clash like I am, but I'm sure that it's going to be weird now, Clash wrestling without Juntai, a.k.a. Jay Miller.
Absolutely. Without a doubt, Juntai or Jay Miller, whatever you want to call him, has been in Clash longer than I have. He was there from the very beginning, and, I've seen him grow throughout the years, and it's definitely going to be tough to lose him, especially with how talented he is. He might have aligned himself with the wrong people near the end of his career, but it looked like there was still some of the old Juntai left in him when the Clash tried getting him to tried interfering with that match. But yeah, he's a great guy. He's a great talent. I'm going to miss wrestling him. I'm going to miss watching him wrestle. Great guy overall. It's definitely a big loss to Clash wrestling.
But GQ Gavin Quinn staying in Clash, and
right.
I'm sure if you do get your hands on that championship, that he could be one of the challengers you face.
Oh, I would hope so. I would love nothing more than to smash GQ. He's very athletic, probably the most dominant champion Clash Wrestling's ever seen. He went on one of the most impressive win streaks we've ever seen in Clash Wrestling in the sport in general. He was undefeated for an entire year, never pinned, never submitted. So if I could, if I become champion or when I become champion, to knock off Dragon Greed and then to knock off GQ Gavin Quinn, I mean, those would be just two beautiful heads sitting over my fireplace in the cave of the prehistoric forest.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about what I think, and I'm sure everybody else would agree with me, the highlight of Seize the Day, and that was my boys, the Clash, getting the win in a 6-man tag. My best friend Randy Casey, Jack
That's
Vaughn,
right.
Dave Manzo. Now that was impressive. I'm sure you would agree.
Well, I will agree that those are three talented men that you just talked about, and their opponents are very talented as well. Obviously, I think they're pretty unscrupulous characters, but that being said, I know it made you happy, Lance Brock.
It did.
That's all I have to say about the Clash, I think.
And now, unfortunately, we have to move on and talk about a low light of the night.
Right.
A bad part. Now, Martin, the cameraman, he's a good guy. Everybody loves Martin. But him, no, he was very ungrateful. Randy Casey gave him a birthday gift any wrestling fan would love, to have their very first wrestling match on the biggest show of the year against one of the greatest superstars ever, Randy Casey, the Wrecking Ball. And what did he do? He went out of the ring trying to run away, and then when Randy tried to wish him happy birthday, give him the birthday cake, he actually shoved the birthday cake in Randy's face. Very disrespectful.
Right. Well, Randy was trying to challenge Martin to a wrestling match. And let's face it, Martin's not a professional wrestler. Randy Casey is a professional wrestler. That's a very dangerous thing to even suggest. And I think Martin made Randy Casey look like the buffoon that he is by putting that cake in his face. And I know that's your best friend. But, Martin's one of my best friends. So it was definitely great to see Martin get up on Randy Casey.
You know what?
The meatball is a meatball.
He's not a sub sandwich. He's a pro wrestler.
He's a sub sandwich.
No, he's not.
I don't know. He's a meatball sub.
Now, you brought up a good point. Martin's not a trained pro wrestler, but neither am I. I'm a podcaster. But if somebody offered me to get in the ring, have my first ever pro wrestling match, I would love that. That would be great.
I think that you might leave the ring with maybe one or two less limbs than you entered the ring.
I got an idea, though. How about if Clash Management would let this happen? But I don't know if you would be brave enough to let this happen, though. How about we have a tag match? Me and Randy Casey versus the Caveman Elk and Martin the Cameraman. How about that?
Oh. Well, I don't know if Clash Management would approve that because there's all kinds of licenses and physicals you two are going to have to pass.
So in other
step
words,
inside the ring with Elf the Caveman and Randy Casey, but I don't know, Lance Brock. You know, you're. I think you might be barking up the wrong tree with that match.
I mean, in other words, you're afraid of a podcaster, right?
Well, I think in other words, it might be better for your first pro professional wrestling match to be against somebody who is more your speed, maybe like a meatball sub.
Oh, but okay, but no, maybe one more time in the future we can see one-on-one that meatball sub, as you called him, Randy Casey versus the Caveman. One more time.
Oh, yes, I think inevitably down the line, you're going to see the meatball versus the Caveman. I mean, I think our fates are just as connected as Romeo and Juliet, to be quite honest with you. So I have no doubts that I'll see meatball in the ring one more time.
And you two even switched bodies at Clash from the Crypt. So you know what it's like to be him. It's not easy, but he's a great man and a great athlete, and he's just awesome.
He's a great competitor with a bad attitude. You're right.
I disagree with that, though. I think everybody in the Clash has a great attitude, from Tommy Tresnick, Cameron Sky, Jack Vaughn, and Dave Manzo. Hey, they're my buddies. You know that.
Right. Well, you probably think Hitler had a great attitude, too.
I don't know about that. But speaking of great attitudes, we saw a ladies' match at Seize the Day. And were you able to catch that?
Yeah, I got to see it. I mean, those were four classy competitors. Big an homage to the first Seize the Day match, which was a fatal four-way for the Clash Championship. You know, those ladies are tough. I tell you what, I wouldn't want to get in the ring with them, that's for sure.
And unfortunately, the Clash Tag Team Championships were on the line. But the Midnight Society, I know it was a street fight, no DQs, but they cheated to retain the titles, and I'll explain why. Maserati Rick used the Clash megaphone to hit Tommy Tresnick, and nobody touches that except Clash members. If you're not a Clash member, you cannot touch that megaphone.
Well, fortunately, in the Clash wrestling bylaws, and I believe the sport as a whole, there are no rules as to grabbing someone else's megaphone. So I think the Midnights won their titles or defended their titles pretty fair and pretty square.
But that's Clash property. We could sue them. We could take them on Judge Judy if we wanted to.
Well, I mean, that's a totally different issue, which I would think that you would have a hard time proving in a court of law. But what do I know if I'm just a case?
And I'm not surprised you would side with the Midnight Society. And another guy that I've interviewed on the podcast, Maserati Rick, who you actually teamed with at Divided We Fall.
Yep.
He was very disrespectful. So your disrespect must have rubbed off on him.
I think Maserati Rick is a great competitor. He's a fun guy. And once I become Clash champion, I'd love to wrestle him as well. And then we'll see who's disrespectful. I think we'll see two very respectful guys square off in the ring there. I think you just align yourself with the wrong characters, and they've polluted your view of what good attitude is, Lance Brock.
But the thing is, I feel what the Clash is saying about when they started. It was their originals, and they were getting no respect from Clash management. no respect from the fans, and just like me,